Basic steps to buying multifamily properties in Ontario. Welcome back to Invest with Daniel, where we talk all things real estate investing and how to help make you guys more money. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any videos. So you're interested in buying multifamily real estate. The first thing that you're gonna need to do, the obvious one, is understand your costs and your budget. So you wanna get pre-approved and find a mortgage broker so you understand right away how much you can qualify to help narrow down your search. The next cost you need to understand is your closing costs. Every time you buy a property, there are closing costs that come with it. Not just the purchase price, you need to prepare for your closing costs as well. Your holding costs. If you are buying a property that is fully rented, you don't need to worry about this. However, if you're buying a property that has units that are vacant or might need a renovation, you have to factor things in such as how much is your renovation gonna cost and how long is it going to take to finish? Because each month that goes by, you're missing out on that rental income. So you have to be prepared if you have holding costs as well. So knowing your total budget is very important. And a pro tip, overestimate that budget so you can be more prepared and not fall into any issues where you're ripping your hair out because it's costing you more money than you expected. Now the next step is examining the types of properties, the one that you want to buy. Do you want a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex? Are you looking for an apartment building? How many units are you looking for? Then after you know the exact type of property that you're looking to buy and how many units you want, the next step is doing your research on location and the areas that you should be purchasing in. Now this is super important. You need to understand that if you buy in a bad area, you're going to attract bad tenants. That makes harder management, more stress, more issues. The value of the property won't go up as high. You need to pick a good area where you have good tenants so that you have zero stress, and most importantly, they're taking care of the property and they're paying rent. Every single time a tenant stops paying rent, you have headaches and it's very hard to evict them. Now here's the important factors that you have to note when it comes to area and where you choose to buy your property. You need to understand the average rental price in that area, which is super important. Some areas will yield a higher rental price than others, and that's exactly what you want when you're buying multifamily property. Higher rent. Another very important thing is in the area, you'll be able to tell what the vacancy rate is. Employment rate, this is another important one. If they have a high employment rate within that neighborhood, that means you're going to be able to attract qualified tenants for your rental property. Which leads me to my next point. What types of businesses are nearby in that neighborhood? And more importantly, what types of businesses are coming to the neighborhood soon? If you see a Starbucks is coming to the neighborhood or already there, a Tim Hortons, a Walmart, Fortinos, those big brand stores, they've already done their research for you. Now why is that? Because these big brand stores are not gonna plant themselves in a bad neighborhood where they can't make money and they don't see growth within the community. So for your multiplex, this is exactly what you want. You want the value to continuously go up, the rents to be continuously rising. This way you can make more money and see a better return on your investment, which is exactly why you're doing this. So make sure you do your due diligence and pay attention to these things. And lastly, what is the public transit like in the neighborhood that you are purchasing in? Another very important one that you want to pay attention to. Some tenants don't drive. They want to be close to their workplace. So if you're in an area where there's great public transit, you're going to have a low vacancy rate. You'll be able to charge more for rent and it's more convenient for those tenants. So understand all of these factors so you know exactly why neighborhood is so important. And one day you might want to refinance. And if you do decide to do that, because of all these factors, you see a huge increase in property value and you can pull some money out and do it again. We'll get get into that in another video, so make sure that you subscribe. Now you've got your budget all figured out, you've got your neighborhood all figured out, you know what type of property you're looking for. Now it's time to get a real estate agent that can help you do this. Now I'm talking about an investor savvy real estate agent, not just your typical mom and pop real estate agent that doesn't understand real estate investing, especially multifamily properties. Now you might think to yourself, I can do this myself, I don't need a real estate agent, but trust me on this one, it's about having a second set of eyes on this investment. It's not gonna be a small investment. These are bigger investments, multifamily properties. So having another set of eyes that can help give you the yes, you should buy this, or the no, more importantly, no, do not buy that. That's a bad property. It's gonna cost you a lot of money, lose you a lot of money. It's gonna be a lot of stress. You're gonna have a hard time sleeping at night. Get a real estate agent that understands real estate investing. Shoot me a message if you have any questions. I am a real estate agent in Ontario that works with investors, and I'd be happy to help you guys. Now that you have all these things figured out, you've got your budget, you've got your neighborhood, the property type, your real estate agent, it's time to now start to search for properties. Now let's say you found the property that you like. Here's the things that you're gonna look into about that property. The cap rate. What is the cap rate? A cap rate is the return on your investment. Now again, I'm gonna talk about this in a later video. Some people, this is super important to them right off the hop so they know what the return is, and other people don't care because they're gonna evict tenants, turn over the units, renovate them, and renovate them for higher to bring the property value up. Again, we'll talk about this in another video because it is a savvy trick. Now the next thing you want to look into about this property is the tenants, the tenant profile. You need to dissect the tenants and you need to dissect the leases on the property. And when you're dissecting those leases, it's not just about how long they've been at the property. Are they on a fixed term? Are they month to month? Are they paying for all of the utilities, or are some of the utilities at the landlord's cost? That's you. Those expenses will come out of your pocket. So it's very important. You want to have a property that the tenants are paying all of the utilities. Of course, sometimes there's some little things the landlords will pay for, but the more they pay for, the better. Things that you need to know. How long have they been living at the property for? This is important because let's be honest, if they're a low paying tenant and they've been there 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to be a hard time for you to evict that tenant so that you can get higher rent. Anything in Ontario that has more than 4 units, you cannot evict that tenant for your own personal use. There's other avenues that you can do, but it makes it a lot harder, which is another thing your real estate agent needs to understand. The Ontario tenancy laws with the landlord and tenant board, because you could easily wind up in a troublesome situation if you don't know how to evict tenants and you don't know the laws and you just do something that you think you can do but you're actually not allowed. Next thing about the tenants, you need to find out, are they missing any rent payments? Are they paying late? Are they paying rent? You don't want to buy a property, close on that property, and find out there's a percentage of them that's not paying you rent. Yes, you can evict them for this. However, in Ontario, that can take 6-8 months. It takes time. So that will now factor into your holding costs that you're floating this additional expense while you're trying to evict the tenants. Now, you also need to make sure that when you visit the property, you go inside the units and see how those tenants live. Are they clean? Are they tidy? Are they making a mess? Are they damaging things? Are they going to cause you headaches when it's time to manage that property because now you're the owner? All of these things matter. Pay close attention to this because you want to buy a property that doesn't have a lot of stress, that makes you a lot of money, you can sleep at night, and you just see a great return on your investment. So the tenant profile is super important. You also need to see if any of the tenants are currently under an eviction process. All of these things matter. Now the next due diligence part when it comes to looking at the property is walking around the entire thing. Again, the bigger the property, the bigger the expense. So if you're buying an apartment building, you need to know how old that roof is because that's a massive expense when it comes to replacing that roof. If it's older, you can factor this in on your costs and hopefully get a better price. Just take a good look at that property and understand all these things because they are costs that do come out of your pocket. And I'm talking about big structural things, not small cosmetic stuff. The big things, the big expenses. Which leads me to my next point, the income and expense report report on the property. This will tell you what the tenants are paying for with the utilities, what the landlord's paying for, hopefully nothing. This will tell you what the current rents are on the property. You can get your cap rate, see what the property taxes are, management, upkeep, all of that stuff. This will tell you how much income you have to work with after all the expenses are paid. Make sure you factor in your mortgage, because that's not an expense that will be on the income and expense report, because that's up to your financing. Now, there's a lot of things that you want to dissect when it comes to looking at a property, which is why I stress so much about shopping around with somebody that knows what they're looking for. And another thing that you want to look for and find out is the property on separate hydro meters? This is another important factor, because again, you want to push those utilities back to the tenant. And I've seen this happen many times where you'll buy a 6-unit property and only 5 of them are on a separate hydro meter, because the other one that was renovated and put into the property is actually an illegal unit and they just crammed another one in, or maybe they took a large unit and divided it into 2. Check the zoning, check the legal status of the property. If it's a 4-plex, is it actually a 4-plex? Verify these things, because it matters, and you don't want to close on the property and find out later that what you bought isn't actually what you bought. It said it was a 4-plex, turned out it was a triplex. I've seen these nightmares happen before. Someone purchased a duplex, finds out that it wasn't actually a duplex, it was a single family property. Now, of course, there's legal things that you can get into and fight this, but that's a massive, massive headache, and you don't want to deal with that. So make sure you understand the zoning of the property and its current legal use. You also want to make sure that you take a look at parking to make sure that there is enough parking spots for the amount of units that you buy. If there is units available that don't have parking spots, they're going to be harder to rent sometimes if the tenant has a car. You also don't want to deal with any issues when it comes to management, like somebody moves in without a car, then all of a sudden they get a car, and other tenants are complaining that someone's taking their spot. Now, you've checked all your boxes, you absolutely love the property that you found. It's now time to put in an offer on that property. Now, you want to look at things such as the cap rate, the rental income, the expenses, how much is this property bringing in currently monthly right now? Because when it comes to multifamily properties, the higher the income, the higher the value, which is why you want to buy something that you can improve to make more money. So if the income is not high, you can use this as leverage to negotiate a better price, because you need to work on this. You're the one that has to carry this property, and you're the one that's not going to be making as much money because of that. And it does take time to evict those tenants and get that money up. So this is something that's super important. You want to make sure you factor those things in. Now, you also need to make sure you put the right clauses in and the right conditions in your offer, such as things like reviewing the leases. The seller must give you all of the leases within the first 24 to 48 hours of acceptance, so you can dissect all of them, make sure that the financials is actually what he told you, make sure that you like the leases that you see and all of the terms, so that you can fulfill that condition, but you can do your due diligence before you firm up on the property. Next condition is the property inspection. Just because it looks like a good property doesn't mean it is. And like I said, the bigger the property, the bigger the expense. You don't want to close on the property without a property inspection, find out there's a foundation issue, or the roof needs to be repaired, or something that's going to cost you $10, $20, $30 plus $1,000. So make sure that you do a property inspection so the property inspector can tell you everything that they see, all the minor things and all the big things. Condition on zoning verification, I touched on this. Put that in there. You can check with the city, you can have your lawyer check, you can make sure that this property is actually the legal use that they said it is. Now, these are only a few of the clauses and conditions that you do want to put in. I'm just giving you some basic information here, and there could be more of them depending on the type of property that you buy. So just do your due diligence and make sure that you are aware of what conditions and clauses you should put into the offer. Now, the offer is accepted, you've purchased the property, it's time to now prepare for closing. Now, you need to prepare your finances, so you want to send the agreement of purchase and sale that was accepted to your mortgage broker so that he can start working on your financing, making sure that everything is lined up for the closing date, and you can prepare all your funds to be ready for closing. And another thing that I want to recommend is I want to recommend that you or your property manager now go and meet the tenants in between the closing period. I've seen this happen many times where people will close on a property, the tenants find out it's the new owner, and all of a sudden some of them decide that they're not going to pay rent anymore, or they're going to up and leave the property, all sorts of stuff. There's been a lot of nightmares that I've seen, and you want to avoid those. Truth is, if you go to meet your tenants and you guys can develop a good relationship, or better yet, your property manager goes and meets those tenants and they can develop a good relationship, introduce themselves as the new owner, things start off on a good foot. It's always best to have good relationships with your tenants. You want to get that rent on time. Sometimes they'll pay it to you early. And most importantly, you want them to take care of the property as if it was theirs. So I hope these tips helped you guys. Don't forget, subscribe to this channel to invest with Daniel. And don't forget to like this video. It does help me a lot. And I look forward to talking to you guys more about real estate investing. I'll see you guys in the next video.